7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. This is, what we call this, the furlough podcast, even though you're not technically furloughed.
Yeah, I'm actually working.
You're still working. And
I think I'm actually more productive working from home than I am in the office because I don't have people coming in all the time and talking and asking questions and shit.
Yeah, I mean, mostly your wife probably just stays away anyways, even if you're not working.
Hey-o. She's actually trying to fire one of her paralegals, so every time I see her, all she talks about is, like, screaming and why is he lying to me and this, that, and that. Yeah, it's a scene.
So, well, I will say this, due to the furloughs, we had to close the contract on Studio A, so now we will call this, Studio 2A? We are in the home studio at this point now because, unpaid, seldomly listened to podcasts are not immune to this crisis.
Son of a bitch.
We are not immune to the crisis, so we are not renting podcast space anymore. We are now in my man cave, the new and improved man cave.
Yeah, it's an interesting setup. Much more comfortable chair than what I'm used to.
That is true, yeah. Usually you're used to the one with the stick up your ass.
Oh.
Anyways, we are sponsored by 12 Ounce Sports Radio and Seat Giant, promo code 12 Ounce Sports, where you can get discounted sporting events, concert, and theater tickets. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we are currently 1 week without sports. On-field sports?
That sounds about right.
But, there was a big debate on Twitter between many people. Some people were happy that the NFL continued on with their, opening of the league year, and some people were not because, and I can understand both sides. For me personally, I'll tell you my side, the way I think about it. I need some normalcy in my life. I mean, I'm sitting here doing honey-do projects. The honey-do list is pretty much completed at this point. Pressure wash the house, clean the garage, clean the cars. I'm pretty much done, and I'm staring off. There was one point I caught myself just staring at the fan as it twirled. So I needed a sense of normalcy in my life, and players changing teams, the league year beginning. Obviously, for you and I, one of the biggest stories, and we'll get to it, is number 12 for the Patriots, or formerly of the Patriots, I guess. And the flip side of that coin, and I don't know your thought process on this, the flip side of the coin was, as we sit here, majority of us in furlough, many of us not receiving paychecks, why the fuck do we care about how, this guy trading teams and signing for $30 million a year, this guy signing for $25 million a year, when that money, those dollars aren't real to us?
Yeah, it is sort of a strange prospect to think about the millions of dollars trading hands almost willy-nilly when a guy like Ted Karras turning down, I think it was a $5 million offer from the Patriots so he could take $4 million somewhere else, but he had a chance to start. Just like leaving $1 million on the table. What would you and I do with $1 million that he just left on the table?
$1 million in New England with state taxes, or I guess Massachusetts more specifically, or $4 million, $5 million in New England, or $4 million in Miami with no state tax. Where are you making more?
Well, true, but remember, you're taxed in the state in which the game is played, so it's only the 8 games as opposed to the 16.
Right, but the other games could be played in, I don't know if he's playing in Los Angeles, I don't know the Pats schedule, but you're also taxed in the games where you're played on the road as well.
Sure, no, I get that, but
I still got to imagine that you come out ahead making only $4 million versus $5 million. But that's, you're right. On the fundamental basis, some guy leaving $1 million on the table doesn't click with the common man, especially when we're, and I'll put it out there. I filed unemployment on Monday, and I'm sitting here looking, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll be making, and I'll just use a rough number, I guess I'll be making $425 a week. If I do that over a month, that should cover my nut. Here I am sitting there thinking, okay, well, I was used to making X, and now we're looking at less than half.
Yeah.
And is that going to cover my nut for the foreseeable future? Because Las Vegas just shut down. We have a dark city. I mean, our city who relies on tourism, and I got to give them credit. You know, these places stayed on as long as they could. You know, despite the backlash, I give the companies credit for the employees' sake. Now, that's a whole other bag of worms. But the employees, you know, if you took a poll of all the employees, yes, they're worried about the virus, but they need to check, dude.
Yeah, no, they need to eat. They need to provide for their families. And this has always been a stable thing. I posted on Facebook earlier today, you know, what is the bigger sign that this is a serious disease? Is it, you know, Nevada shutting all casinos for 30 days, or is it Ireland canceling St. Patrick's Day?
Wow.
You know,
Yeah. I know Chicago did, but that's not on the scale as Ireland.
Yeah, Ireland, like, there was an AMA on Reddit from a pub owner in Dublin. He's just like, yeah, I'm closed on St. Patrick's Day in Dublin.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked.
That's how you know that country is taking it seriously, of all places.
But, you know, it's one of those crazy things, and I'll, you know, you don't have to get into too much detail if you don't want to, but I know of certain people that are in your similar situation where they've filed for unemployment and been denied because their company's like, oh no, he's not fired, he's just getting 0 hours. So therefore not eligible for unemployment, but also not getting paid.
Well, I can tell you this. I signed a piece of paper that officially placed me as laid off.
Ah, okay.
Now, and I am not an hourly employee. Let's put it that way. I am not an hourly employee at my job.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when I was told I was laid off, I went into that meeting thinking, well, I'm a salaried, you know, person. I get paid by the year. I would assume I have two separate. If you break it down, I have my salary and I have a toke rate.
Okay.
And I expected to go in there and not receiving the toke rate, obviously, because the toke rate's based on business.
Right.
I mean, if there's no business, then you can expect that to be zero. But I expected the salary to continue to be paid because of me personally being a salaried employee. But no, that is not the case. So I can't imagine I will get denied. However, I have stared at the claim for 2 days, and it just says open. So as a person who's never filed unemployment online, I have filed unemployment before in a different state. This is all very new to me.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Plus, you know, I'm sure that when you filed for it before, it wasn't because a pandemic cost you your job. I'm sure it was just under normal circumstances of losing a job or, you know, whatever the case may be.
No, I can dive into this because okay. I don't see myself doing this line of work ever. I can't say never, but I don't plan on doing this line of work as long as my life continues in an upward direction. That's just for lack of a better word. I used to be a traveling poker dealer.
Ah, okay.
So I used to travel all the circuits, the World Series, the WPT. For those of you who know anything about these, you know these circuits go all around the country and sometimes in different places in the world. I've dealt in the Bahamas, I've dealt in the Dominican Republic, I've dealt in Ireland, I've dealt in New Jersey. New Jersey is the state that we will talk about. I filed an unemployment claim in New Jersey because at the time, I don't know how it is now, they used to pay the highest unemployment of any state per week, which at the time I believe was like $693 a week.
Damn.
Which is crazy.
Damn.
So I would work this one stop in Atlantic City at a place called the Borgata. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a casino in Atlantic City. I believe they're now owned by MGM Properties. And they would host 4 events a year and then lay you off for that specific reason of paying, that you could go and file for unemployment. But you had to, at the time, this was 10 years ago, you had to go into the office to do it because the internet wasn't as capable as it is now. So back then, I would go work series, and then I would work for about 6 months a year and take the other 6 months off and collect unemployment for 26 weeks. So, and I haven't done that since 2011. So going online, filling everything out, it's all the same general premise, but it's still a new concept to me.
Right. Well, and that's, I mean, it's interesting, and I do enjoy hearing about these sorts of things. I got a master's in public administration, so whenever I hear about like public policies and the different bureaus doing their thing, I'm always kind of interested in it. What I was getting at is the fact that when you filed before, it was more because that was your choice or the company's choice, as opposed to everybody in the state being in the same book.
Oh, yeah, of course we're in an unprecedented situation.
Therefore, there's the backlog that they have to process these claims has to be absurd.
Well, and that's why obviously I'm not, calling the 800 line being like, where the hell's my claim?
Right.
Because I get it. Every single person in the state that's been furloughed is attempting to file. It's just the simple fact of, watching it just say open. All I wanted to do is just, I don't know if it says approved or, I don't know what the next step, I just, it's very weird waiting on a web page to pay you, for lack of a better word, waiting on a web page to just click over so that you can, receive money every week. And now the curious thing I want to know, and a friend brought it up to me, and I didn't have an answer. Traditional unemployment requires that you actively look for work.
Okay.
Are they going to do that now? I mean, with the whole damn state shut down, you can't really look for work. I mean, grocery stores, hospitals, obviously I don't have the qualifications to work in a hospital. I could work in a grocery store, but to be honest with you, full disclosure, the amount I'll be receiving from unemployment is more than a job at a grocery store.
I would imagine, unless they start getting like hazard pay or
unless they start getting
pay.
double pay, and then even and then we can talk. But I am not opposed to finding work. But in a situation like this, which is obviously unprecedented, do I have to find work like traditional unemployment? That would be an interesting question for someone who works in public affairs.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I'm curious to see how that all shakes out for you. So,
yeah, well, we'll have another podcast probably this weekend.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. So. All right, let's get to something a little happier now that we've bummed you out for the first 11 minutes of the podcast. Let's talk about the NFL, and we'll start with TB in TB. That's what the headline in the Tampa newspapers when my mother sent it to me. I have mixed emotions because I think. And as you can see on my walls here in the man cave, there's only two NFL teams represented, and that is the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And I said to the producer, I said, because she asked me one time, she's like, "Are you going to root for Tom Brady if he goes to another team?" And I said, "Only if he goes to the Bucs." And it's true. It's the only way I will root for Tom Brady. If he went to the Chargers, I wouldn't root against him actively. I would just obviously not. I don't know what I would want to see because I honestly never pictured it. I am in shock that he's gone.
Yeah, it is sort of a crazy thing to think about. Also, I just realized that Tom Brady jerseys are going to be on sale for cheap, and I shrunk out of the one that I had before, so I'm going to have to buy one. But
could you imagine being in sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Imagine being in New England at like a Modell's. Or I don't know what else is up there as far as sporting goods stores, and seeing the clearance rack with his jersey.
Yeah, that's...
And not because he retired.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if people are going to not buy... And if people don't buy it because they think that he left just because he wanted out, is that going to be different than he left because the team didn't pay him and this, that, and the other? It's kind of a weird situation.
It's going to be weeks of speculation with that.
Yeah.
You know what the first thing I want to see, I don't want to see it, but I'm going to see it, someone on social media burning his jersey.
Oh, yeah.
6 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs, 9 AFC championships, and someone's going to burn his fucking jersey.
17 division titles, and somebody's going to go out there and burn it.
Yeah. So, initial thoughts, everybody's talking about all the weapons, but Tampa just, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think, taking an objective approach to this, I don't think what they had last year, replacing Jameis Winston and adding a 43-year-old quarterback who regressed, makes them a Super Bowl contender.
No, especially not with that offensive line. He has no protection down there. unless they start spending money. I know
we have the draft, obviously more free agency.
Sure.
But...
Yeah. I mean, free agency isn't done, but as they're built now, like Tom Brady had to look at that team and say, if I go to this team, am I going to be a contender? And he thought that he would be, which is kind of baffling to me because I don't see how that's possible. This is a team last year where they go 7-9.
Yeah, 7-9, and a lot of the Bucs fans who were on my Facebook tell me that 7 of those losses were by 1 score or less. Which, okay, that the NFL, most of your games are won, 7 to 10 points.
Yeah,
you've got to win those. Is Brady the guy that's going to flip that stat?
I mean, let's assume that they get 3 or 4 more wins because of Brady.
Okay, well,
I mean, so they're
puts them
10-6, 11-5, which is probably good enough to win that division. Not last year, obviously, because the Saints were that good. You wonder what Carolina is going to be like with Teddy Bridgewater if that deal ever gets finalized.
I know that's a weird one too.
Yeah, and what do we make of Atlanta with Matt Ryan and what they have down there? I mean, this is not an easy division that Tom Brady can go into and just dominate, especially not with Drew Brees presumably still in there.
And I would argue that as it's currently constructed with Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber, their running game's worse than New England's running game. So
you can make that argument.
It's not like, I mean, obviously Evans and Godwin are phenomenal receivers.
Oh, absolutely.
And the story line all year was Brady needs receivers. Brady needs receivers. Brady needs receivers. So, I mean, you can put the pieces together with that. I mean, is there a better combo in the NFL right now than Evans and Godwin?
That's probably not.
It's tough to say, right?
Yeah, unless what do they have in Dallas there? What's his name and the other guy?
Exactly. That's my point. I think you just made my point right there. You could have said Diggs and Thielen, but Diggs is gone. He's in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let's just say for argument's purposes here, that is the best wide receiver combo. Is that the reason he went? I mean, I asked a question and I said it on Facebook. I said, this signing doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And everybody pointed Evans and Godwin. And I'm just like, is that it? If he's running on his ass as a 43-year-old quarterback, he's not running, obviously. But if he's on his ass every other play, I mean, he can't get the ball to Evans and Godwin. That was kind of the knock on Jameis Winston. He was always getting bum rushed and he was throwing the ball to the other team. I did like there was a meme on social media that said, if you weren't with us when we were 7-9, a post out to bandwagon fans, then you're not allowed to join the bandwagon when we go 8-8.
And so, I mean, we can talk about the minutia of the players, and I think it's interesting, especially with the. I don't think the offensive line is that good. I don't know what we're going to see out of the defense. Obviously Tom Brady can't control that. But I think they've got a pretty good coach in Arians. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. The running game's not as good. Who's their tight end? I don't even know.
O.J. Howard. He's been, for all intents and purposes, a first-round bust at this point.
Yeah.
But the other guy who I like, and I know Jameis Winston was one that, he was a favorite target. Jameis was Cameron Brate, who's coming back. So, I mean, you have the talent with O.J. Howard, the consistency with Cameron Brate. Maybe somehow, because Howard's a big guy. Maybe somehow there's a Gronk kind of connection there.
So, and that would help Brady, obviously. But, you wonder when, because Brady and Belichick had that symbiotic relationship for so long. Brady going into another system, is that going to rub Arians the wrong way? Is Arians going to rub Brady the wrong way? Like, how do we know that this is actually going to work to the point where, and obviously winning cures all, but if they go in there and they start the season 2-2, is that going to be good enough?
Well, and that's the question. And it's hard to argue that Tom Brady's motivation is anything but winning, but is it?
I have heard people say that he is concerned only with money right now.
Which is the craziest thing.
I know, he has never needed the money. His wife has always made
His wife
triple
makes three times what he makes,
Like,
and he doesn't make pittance.
Yeah, right. And he made between 20 and 25 last year, but apparently for his ego, like it has always been for him to take less money so that they could give him weapons, and now out of nowhere.
But if that was the case, he should have gotten 40 if that was his thing.
Right, but
because 30 is not the high point anymore. I believe Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, off the top of my head, all make more than 30.
But I think for him, I think 30 is somehow that threshold, that magic number that says that he is now being paid in the top echelon of quarterbacks, and as a top echelon quarterback, he should be getting that money. He's not performing like a top echelon quarterback anymore, but as a quarterback that needed that kind of or that needed that ego stroking boost, I guess, that gives him the money where he can now
it's just,
say that
after 20 years of selflessness,
I know,
for him to just be all about money, it just something doesn't strike me as correct.
Right, it doesn't add up. It's very strange. So my dad's theory right now, and my dad believes every crazy conspiracy theory on the fucking planet. So I'll put that out there to start this.
This will be a good one.
His thought is the Patriots didn't even make him an offer.
Well, that was the thing that I took away from Robert Kraft's, I guess, statement after it was announced that Brady was going to sign with Tampa. Basically, like, if he wanted to be here, he would have been here, which leads me to believe that Brady told them a while ago he wasn't coming back. And he asked them to respect his privacy, and I'm going to guess that they did.
Yeah.
Because we were talking Andy Dalton, all these other options, drafting quarterbacks. I mean, those options were in the media consistently. I mean, I can't remember last time we were talking about Andy Dalton, being a viable option to start, especially for a team that was a playoff team last year.
It's I don't know, the whole thing is just so crazy to me. So you have to wonder what Brady was looking at by picking Tampa Bay, or the other question is, who were his other suitors where Tampa Bay was better? And is it just that Tampa Bay was the only one out there? Because they were the only ones that I heard of that said, we are making a play for Tom Brady. Everybody else either said no or they were coy about it.
Well, I think being coy is the smart way to go in that spot. If Brady approaches us, because at the same time you have to look at it. I mean, to Patriots fans, they're like, how can this guy walk away? He's been everything. He's Mr. Patriot. He's the Derek Jeter of New England. And he, but to probably more of the other teams, they're like, okay, here's this 43-year-old quarterback who's clearly on the downside. What do we want with him?
Yeah.
I mean, the Bucs, at least for this spot, they've been having a hard time filling a stadium. This is definitely going to have a huge ROI, even if they don't, produce a Super Bowl championship. The ROI on this is huge. I mean, like I said, being from Tampa, I got a lot of friends who are Bucs fans. I root for the Bucs as well, and there's a lot of fans who are excited. I'm having a hard time getting excited for obviously conflicting reasons, but it's just, I mean, there's fans now, saying, oh, well, he came to Tampa because he set all the other records, so he wants to be the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl in the stadium for his team that hosted, what I'm saying, like the team plays in their stadium for the Super Bowl. I'm like, if that factored into his decision, then I would be more inclined to believe that the money was a motivator at that point.
It's just a strange thing, but then
he created a Hollywood agency. Why not go to LA and go to the Chargers?
Yeah. That to me would have made a lot of sense, especially
come to Vegas. It's close.
He said that he wanted to stay on the East Coast, but it's like, is that really what it is? Because there aren't a ton of teams on the East Coast, and I can't imagine that.
I mean, is it specifically the coast, or is it just the Eastern time zone?
Or Eastern Seaboard, maybe? I don't know.
Because if that's the case, he could have gone to Cincinnati. They could have drafted Burrow, and he could play for 2 years and let Burrow sit.
That's exactly what I was saying that they should have done. but what it comes down to is how do we measure this move in terms of success? Like, what does Tampa Bay have to do in order to have a quote-unquote successful season?
Is there a right answer, or are you asking for my opinion?
Well, the Boston sports...
Because everyone's going to have different opinions.
The Boston sports media seem to have come to the conclusion that one playoff win for Tampa Bay this year is enough for this to be considered a successful season for them.
For them, yes.
For them, yeah. So...
But if he's trying to prove that he can win without Belichick, I think a conference championship appearance is the bare minimum.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem is they're in a tough division.
They're in a tough conference.
And the NFC is significantly harder.
I could name 5 teams off the top of my head that are better than them.
Oh, yeah.
As currently constructed.
Well, and that I was talking about this with my dad. Like, they're probably not going to win the division. And if they're not going to win the division, between New Orleans, Carolina, and Tampa Bay, they're probably third best out of that. So are they really going to make the playoffs as the third?
I could argue that, but I'll let you have it.
But,
they're not far and away the best team in the NFC or the NFC South.
Yeah, and the bigger problem with the South is there's going to be a bunch of teams competing for the title in the West, and there's probably going to be the same kind of fight that we saw in the North. So it's not even a guarantee that getting second place in the South is going to get them into the playoffs.
Are we doing the 17 playoffs this year, or is that
next year?
Next year, okay. So he can at least get a bye, I guess.
Yeah,
with Tampa, getting a 1 or a 2 seed. And let's not take out the equation that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they're playing a second place schedule as well in the NFC. Because they finished in second place at 7-9 over Carolina and Atlanta last year. So it's not like they were a doormat in the bottom and are going to also be aided by a fourth place schedule. So, yeah. All right, let's flip gears because I don't want to be all. It's not a full negative thing with Tom Brady. I mean, he has the right, and he doesn't owe anybody anything to do whatever he wants. He is a free agent by every standards of the word. But what will you consider? How will you consider Belichick's legacy? Because let's see, what are we looking at? I don't have exact records in front of me, but with the Browns, obviously, it didn't go well.
Well, I mean, he had the 1 winning season out of the 3, but then the team shut down. I remember going into that final year.
That's when they moved?
Is when they moved. It was announced either right at the beginning of the season or after week 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there that they were going to be moving to Baltimore at the end of the year. In the preseason, the Browns were favored to win the AFC. But when it was told that they were going to be moved to Baltimore, the team kind of gave up and rioted and kind of shit the bed, and they didn't perform nearly as well as they could have.
That's fair. So, but obviously the Browns seasons did not go anywhere near the Patriots seasons.
No, and that's so. The question then becomes, what does Bill Belichick try to do? Does he try to Frankenstein a team together to try to stay competitive, like a 9-7, 8-8, 10-6 type record? Compete in the AFC East with the Bills, who now look much, much better? Or does Belichick say, let's tank for 2 or 3 years,
Trevor Lawrence,
and do what we have to do to get...
I mean, the guy's 67?
Right, but...
Does he have 2 or 3 years?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
In the court of public opinion. Because that's the question is...
He'll stay alive just out of spite.
I think it's irrational to put Bill Belichick's legacy or tarnish his legacy if he never wins another championship. I think that's totally and 100% irrational. But I think it is rational to say that the people who put this all on Belichick have to now come back to middle ground with Brady. Because a lot of the arguments I always hear is Belichick's a guru. Belichick's a defensive guy.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to give credit where credit's due, as crazy as it sounds, and I know that this is not your favorite guy, but Josh McDaniels, Charlie Weiss, Bill O'Brien, those are the guys that worked with Brady.
Yeah, and that's fair, but
I mean, Belichick and Brady are always going to be tied to each other. So when we ask the situation of what's the measure of success for specifically Tom Brady, what will we determine as successful not to tarnish the legacy of Bill Belichick? Because I believe it's unreasonable to expect him to just continue winning Super Bowls and maybe even continue appearing in AFC Championship games.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was getting at with my last question is what do we expect him to do with this year? Is it going to be to compete, or does he take the long-term approach where if he says, I'm going to shit the bed so that way in 2, 3, 4 years we are going to have a team that is going to compete again.
And Tom Brady's probably gone.
And Tom Brady's either retired or he's, throwing about as many interceptions as Jameis Winston did this past year with a noodle arm.
Nobody ever thinks about this situation could get ugly, too.
It could.
It could get bad for Brady. I liken it to, I hope it doesn't go this way, but I liken it to when Brett Favre seemed to hold on just too long. The year in Minnesota where they went to the NFC Championship, it was all daisies and roses, but he held on just a little bit too long.
So if what's going to kill Brady is if Tampa Bay finishes with a worse record this year than they did last year. If they go 6-10 or worse, people are going to shit all over Brady and his decision to leave.
Can't win with Belichick.
Can't win, and that's going to really get under his skin, and I think that's probably going to be unfair. But at the same time,
it's all going to be. Let's preface it. Any comparisons are all going to be unfair. That's why I think I'm going to hold us to the fire and try to get some decisions. What will be considered successful for both of these teams? For both of these people who are in this conversation, Belichick and Brady.
So for Brady, I think it has to be winning record. I think 9-7 or better, and they're good.
Okay, but I mean, we're talking. Their odds currently in Vegas are 13-2. So what is that?
7.5 to 1.
6.5 to 1 to win the NFC Championship, and 14-1 to win it all.
That's absurdly stupid.
They'd be in the 50s or 60s with Jameis Winston or a different quarterback.
Yeah, and obviously Brady should get them wins, but is he going to get them enough? I don't know. Not the way that he threw the ball last year. Now, obviously, the receivers that he had around him didn't help.
Well, I did see a lot of Pro Football Focus talk that he was actually statistically, although not in previous years, but comparatively speaking, he was the 7th most accurate quarterback with his ball. Now, that didn't always translate to completions, but as far as actually hitting the window of accuracy, he was the 7th most accurate quarterback of 2019.
Right, and that's fine, and we can...
and obviously your guys have to catch the ball, and that's where the whole argument, we need new receivers, we need better receivers, quit cutting Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown could be an interesting move as well. Could you imagine
how crazy
Brown,
would that be?
Godwin, and Evans?
Oh, that would be uncoverable.
And now there's rumors out there that the Bucs are interested in trading for Todd Gurley.
Really?
Yeah. The other thought process is the ones that I've seen. Again, these are nothing but speculation because we don't even know when the draft is going to be at this point. The other speculation is that where they pick, I think they're in the teens somewhere this year. Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin, and I know you don't watch college football, but that guy's a beast.
Yeah,
he's pretty good.
All right.
But
that'll make for an interesting pick then.
Maybe able to do both. Who knows? I don't know. It's just you try to remain level-headed in this because for one fandom, I'm very excited at the prospect of. I don't know if you know this, but the Bucs won the Super Bowl in 2002, split between the Patriots' first 3 Super Bowls.
Yep.
They have not won a playoff game since then.
Oh, I did not know that.
They have not won a playoff game since.
Wow. And that was back when John Gruden was coach that they won that, right?
Correct. I think another 7 years and he was toast.
Yeah.
They appeared in a few, but they have not won a playoff game since the Super Bowl in 2002.
They've made the playoffs with Jameis Winston, correct?
No.
They did not make the playoffs with Winston. Wow.
No. They have finished, I believe, 7-9 and 8-8 under him, but have not made the playoffs, no.
Interesting. Okay.
So it'll be interesting. Another place I thought Brady would end up, but obviously when we saw this come down the wire, it was out. Dak Prescott has been franchise tagged by the Cowboys.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yes. I don't know what the exact number is for the franchise tag, but this season is shaping up to be another drama-filled one for the Cowboys. You got Amari locked up long term. You got Zeke locked up long term. But now you're spending another season wondering if you're having to keep Dak happy.
Yeah, and maybe bigger issue is that you're losing Jason Witten.
No. Sorry, I can't agree with you. No, he was virtually irrelevant this year. Trust me, I had him on a fantasy team a couple of times.
Okay.
I mean, in fantasy, you know as well as anybody. After Kelsey, Ertz, and what's his fuck? The guy from the 49ers. Kittle,
yeah.
It's slim pickings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had Witten a couple of times. But
it didn't work out for you?
I mean, I ended up losing in the Super Bowl. I mean, but if you're relying on tight ends to, score you all the points, then you've got bigger issues. But anyways, back to Dak Prescott. I don't know what's going on because apparently Dak thinks he's worth more than he is, and I think the Cowboys think he's worth less than he is, technically. Now, what fair market value is, I mean, you can look at Tom Brady, a guy who was allegedly linked to the Cowboys at $30 million, and you could say, okay, Dak's probably right around $30 million, Jimmy Garoppolo, $29 million or whatever. But depending on what report you believe, Dak believes he's worth 35 to 40.
Oh. How?
And you know what? And I thought last year, going into that last year of his rookie deal, he was going to prove himself. Because I don't know if you remember, I was all in on the Cowboys last year.
Yeah, I do remember
thought
that.
They were going to put it all together with Amari Cooper. And they have the exact same team virtually, except for your, man crush, Jason Witten. And I don't see I mean, obviously, like I said, we got a lot of offseason left, but he doesn't do the things necessary to earn the Aaron Rodgers money.
No, not even close.
I mean, here we are going into his 5th year in the league. I hope he turns the page. I really like the guy. But to believe you're worth $40 million, you're smoking.
Yeah, that's kind of absurd. So the good thing about Dak is that he doesn't throw interceptions like some of these other quarterbacks do. So,
Correct.
He can maybe make an argument for that, but I don't know. I know that this past year was his best year statistically, but $40 million, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I'm rooting that they have the kind of season that can earn him some kind of paycheck like that. But right now, yeah, he's definitely incorrect about this one. But the question is, what does Dallas believe he's worth? They overpaid for Zeke because of the holdout.
Yep.
They're paying Mari Cooper. I'll have to get fact checked on this, but I believe they're paying Mari Cooper $19 million. I think it's a 5-year, $95 million deal.
Jesus.
So, as much as I'm all for every player making every dollar that they can earn because of capitalism, if you're putting, I think Zeke makes 15. You're talking about 15, 19, and 40. You're putting $74 million into 3 players.
Yeah, what's the cap, like 120?
No. It's like 185.
Oh, okay.
But still, you have $100 million to sign 50 more players.
Yeah, that's a third.
On top of that, I think they're paying Jaylen Brown like 15. I think they're paying DeMarcus Lawrence somewhere around 13 to 15.
Aye.
I mean, it's going to be an interesting season because the thing is if Dak overperforms, he might ask for 50. And there's only one person right now that's probably worth that. And I think you know who.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota.
Side note, he did sign with the Vegas Raiders, so that'll put some competition here.
Yeah.
But no, I was thinking about that curly-headed ketchup lover guy.
Lamar Jackson?
No, he doesn't have curly. Well, I guess he has curly hair. You know who it is. You know who it is.
I know. Who can forget Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah. Actually, he just signed a big deal, too.
I know. How much was his worth?
91, but apparently it's very team-friendly, where it's 62. It's 62 guaranteed, and they can get out after 2 years if he doesn't perform.
Okay.
So for 2 years, he'll be paid like an upper echelon quarterback, and if he performs like one, then it'll be worth it. And if he doesn't, they can get out of it. So it's kind of an interesting one, but
yeah, good for him.
there has been some movement. Stephon Diggs, a lot of people thought he'd be out, going to Buffalo, and he'll get a kick out of this one. Stephon Diggs is moving from the third most accurate quarterback in the NFL to the least accurate quarterback in the NFL.
Ooh.
Obviously, of course, being your UNLV,
Yeah.
or your Wyoming guy who can't beat you. I mean, I don't know. You can say it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to bother because I actually like the kid now.
And still like the kid and think he's hot garbage.
Yeah, well, and that's, I did shit all over the Bills for trading up in the draft to get a kid who lost to UNLV in his collegiate career, which you can't ever do. But, no, I think that team has rallied around him. They like his moxie. They like his attitude. And, winning cures all. So being able to go to the playoffs this past year, and now that Brady's out of the division, it's wide open for them to win it. I mean, this is Buffalo's division to win this year.
I would imagine that to be correct, yes.
So
I think their win total is only 8.5.
Really?
I believe. I'll have to be fact-checked on that one. I'm going to fact-check myself here.
I looked at William Hill yesterday. As soon as Brady left, I looked at William Hill to see what the lines were for the AFC East, and all the divisions were down for futures bets. So I don't know, or off the board, I guess I should say. So I don't know if those have come back up. I don't know if they're waiting for the draft. I don't know what the deal is. But now I'm kind of
are down. They're down now.
I was kind of kicking myself because I realized that they were up after the Super Bowl was over, and if the Bills were 3-1 or better to win the division, I should have just dumped money on it because all the rumors, even after the Super Bowl, were that Brady was gone. So I should have listened to that and said, all right, if Brady's gone, then Buffalo. Because the Jets aren't good enough to win. The Patriots, Jarrett Stidham, wahoo. And Miami, even with 3 number 1 draft picks, I think they're still probably a couple of years away from actually putting it together and competing.
Back when they were up, I have this was updated at sportsbettingdime.com as of February 10th.
Okay.
Obviously, this was before the Diggs trade.
Sure.
Buffalo was at 8.
8 for the win total?
For the 2020 win total.
Okay.
But obviously that's before Diggs. That might move it up a game.
Sure.
We'll see what happens when things come back out. But the big story, and I really hope you saw this because I would love to talk about this because this is kind of a bombshell.
All right.
So obviously you know that DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver formerly of the Houston Texans, was traded to the Arizona Cardinals, correct?
Yes.
He was traded for David Johnson and I believe a second-round pick.
Yes.
It came out today. We're recording Wednesday night. It came out earlier today. Michael Irvin, of all people, broke this. And if it's true, this is huge. I don't want to build it up too much because then you'll be like, deflated. But anyways, so Michael Irvin, I believe, came on whatever Skip Bayless's show is.
All right.
And said that he talked to DeAndre Hopkins after the trade and said that Bill O'Brien sat DeAndre Hopkins down before this trade and said he was not a fan of DeAndre Hopkins' baby mamas coming around the facilities, and that if DeAndre Hopkins keeps going down this path, he's going to end up like Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, what the fuck?
He likened to DeAndre Hopkins, who's never been in trouble as far as I know, has actually been a pretty cool dude. He brings his blind mother to the games and gives her his touchdown balls. And yes, he does have kids with multiple women, despite, that's not obviously the greatest look, but he's still been able to manage a squeaky clean image. And somehow you've likened DeAndre Hopkins to Aaron Hernandez. Bill O'Brien has to be fired if this is true. He has to be fired if this is true.
I mean, even if it's not true, getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins is probably worthy enough of getting fired in and of itself.
Well, that's a whole separate story. I think the trade is obviously terrible. There's rumors surfacing out there that DeAndre Hopkins was unhappy in Houston, wanted a trade. So, believe what you will in that spot. And maybe he's unhappy because of what Bill O'Brien said.
Wow.
Now, I will preface this by saying if it's not true, and Michael Irvin is using this as shock journalism or to get Bill O'Brien fired, that's pure and utter classlessness and ignorance.
For sure. Yeah.
So I will say this, to be fair, if Michael Irvin is lying, which, it's going to basically come out to what does DeAndre Hopkins say? Because there's only one other person who could, I guess, reveal that truth or lie. But if Michael Irvin's lying, that's ignorance and classlessness on his part. But if he's actually telling the truth, Bill O'Brien should be fired.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
No, I agree, and I say this as somebody who shares an alma mater with Bill O'Brien, that if he did actually try to compare this dude to Aaron Hernandez, then that's just fucked up. That is just completely fucked up. You can't do that.
That's huge. If that's true, that's huge.
Oh my God.
You're comparing a guy who's never been in trouble. And yes, he does, like I said, he does have multiple kids with different women, but that's...
So what?
That's
Half the athletes on the team
That's
do.
not illegal. That's not illegal. And you compared him to a guy who committed a double murder, a double homicide.
Oh, God damn it.
I don't even know. I don't even know what to make. I'm really hoping for journalistic integrity's sake that Michael Irvin is right. But I'm really also hoping for Bill O'Brien's sake and just the sake of humanity that he's wrong.
Yeah.
I sit on the fence. I'm not rooting for Michael Irvin to be right or wrong. I'm rooting for the actual for the truth. If they ask DeAndre Hopkins about it, I want him to say Michael Irvin is right or no, that never happened. And if that comes at the expense of Michael Irvin's credibility, then so be it. If he's wrong. Again, if he's wrong.
If he's wrong.
That's unbelievable. I don't know. That when I saw that was unbelievable to me.
Oh my God. I'm kind of glad I didn't see that, because now you can actually get my genuine reaction of just
fair.
What the fuckedness, because it's such a screwed up comparison. I don't know why he thought, if it's true, like you were saying.
Yeah, well, you can speak as if it is true. Go ahead.
Why he thought that would be a good idea to try to make that comparison.
Correct. How he thought that would never get out.
Well, yes, and also how did his mind equate the two? Having the kids with multiple, and then
the alleged direct quote was at some point in the conversation. He said, "The last time I had to have a conversation with an athlete like this, it was Aaron Hernandez, and you don't want to end up like him."
Still not great.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, that's allegedly the direct quote, and it's an interesting story, especially for someone like me who's in the house to keep tabs on.
Yeah, you've got nothing better to do.
Oh, I've got plenty of things better to do. I just will put them off for keeping tabs on Bill O'Brien's impending firing. Again, if true.
Aside from that story, Bill O'Brien has to be on the hot seat anyway, correct?
Yes. They made the divisional round last year. You can argue, and again, we'll go back to the actual trade. You can argue that they can get. As Deshaun Watson gets better, they could get by with Kenny Stills and Will Fuller.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think DeAndre Hopkins is due for a pretty big payday as well. Good for Kyler Murray though to get DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. Curious to see, if his touches drop because they got Fitzgerald. I assume Fitzgerald's coming back, right? Is that officially announced?
I believe he's coming back for one more year. I don't know if it's his last year. You never really know.
Yeah, who knows? Man, wouldn't that be interesting if somehow Tampa Bay got Larry Fitzgerald? If he just finally said...
In what world?
If he just finally said, to hell with it, get me out of here, and Tampa Bay somehow made the deal for it.
Could. He could say, hey, look, I've admired Tom Brady for so long. How many years did we have Larry Fitzgerald to the Patriots rumors?
Yeah, I know, and that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that if those were rumors that he never shot down and never said, I would never do that, that would have been interesting. Anyway, the point being...
that's fair.
Yeah. Kyler Murray getting...
I think they'd go get Antonio Brown before they got Larry Fitzgerald, with all due respect to Larry, obviously.
No, that's
obviously character-wise, it's night and day. But
yeah.
all right, so let's wrap it up here. If you're Bill Belichick or the Patriots organization, what do you do at quarterback?
So for me, knowing, not that I know Bill Belichick's mind, but knowing the way that this team operates, I always feel that it's going to be the long-term plan. So for me, it is you do whatever the fuck for a couple of years, and then you try to either groom Stidham into the guy that you want him to be, or you get somebody through the draft and you can get them up. And if that means tanking for a couple of years, then that's fine.
Can you imagine New England, just the whole fucking Commonwealth of Massachusetts, sitting through losing on purpose? I mean, I know there were years. There's a lot of people my age that haven't really experienced that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. Is that I grew up with this team in the '80s, where they
had some years though.
They made it to the Super Bowl, and then had the biggest margin of defeat in Super Bowl history for.
They played one of the all-time teams.
Yeah,
to be fair.
And then
all-time defenses.
The '90s were okay. They made the playoffs a couple of times, made that one Super Bowl, and then Brett Favre beat the shit out of them. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, people are like, Belichick made everything right. Bledsoe is great. Bledsoe is this, that, and the other thing. Bledsoe, his first year under Belichick, went 5-11. Mm-hmm. Like, these were bad teams. And when the second year, which was Brady's first year when he finally got to start, when Bledsoe got hurt, the team was 1-2 when Brady took over. So it's not like they were going in the right direction. So these are, you have to remember that these games, or this team, for a long time, stunk something fucking awful. So for people that are my age and older, the Patriots stinking, it's kind of like, all right, this was going to happen again. We knew that it was going to happen, so let's just, we'll ride it out and they'll be good again.
But I think a lot of people my age ask, do they have to stink? I mean, do they really have to? I mean, I can understand tanking for Lawrence if that's the end game, if you really believe he's the guy. But let me throw you a curveball.
All right.
Phillip Rivers signed with the Colts.
Yes.
What if they made a trade to bring Jacoby Brissett back to New England?
Interesting.
He's reasonably priced.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't work out, you could put Stidham in and tank, or Stidham could be halfway decent. Or, I mean,
apparently, and this is the craziest thing to me, for throws over, I think it's 25 yards that were attempted this year, Stidham was the third most accurate quarterback in the league.
What? He only threw like 12 passes.
I know, but for whatever reason, the ones that he threw long were actually where they needed to be. The ones that were short were the ones that got interceptions. How is that
sample size big enough?
I have no idea, but apparently it is. Maybe they included preseason in that? I don't know.
Maybe. As I say, he played half of football?
He got in a couple of times, and he fucked up a game.
He fucked up a spread. I know that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Oh,
that was
God,
a big thing.
It drove me fucking crazy.
He threw more touchdowns than the Pats gave up in like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
To the other team. I mean, who knows? We all we saw of Stidham was that pretty much half of football, and everybody's already down on him. I mean, if there's anybody that's drafted quarterbacks properly, it's Bill Belichick.
That is true.
Jared Stidham could be something.
What's Ryan Mallett doing these days?
I don't know.
Can we get him back?
Who knows? What's Ryan Leaf doing these days? Maybe he can come play.
He's like inspirational as fuck on Twitter.
I know. I think he works for ESPN or one of the other. He does.
He might. Yeah.
He might do some kind of in studio reporting.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Good. Yeah. I guess good for him. But I mean, the question I'm staring at right now on ESPN.com is, what do the Patriots do at QB? And literally, it's a blurb that says, Jared Stidham is the top option currently on the roster, but there could be many available passers in the draft, trade, and free agent market.
I've got it. The dark horse, the secret weapon, the one that we haven't thought about. But
Matt Castle?
No. He's been on the team. He has a quarterback's arm, and he wears a quarterback's number.
Oh, Julian Edelman.
Julian Edelman for quarterback of New England.
How could it go any worse? But speaking of
What's this button?
legit quarterbacks, it holds the tray tables. It's where you put the tray table.
Oh, that makes sense.
Is Brian Hoyer still there? Why not run with him? I mean, he had a run with the Browns.
No, he was traded. I just shut my computer down.
Oh, that's right. He was traded to Indianapolis?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he's the backup in Indy right now.
Well, now he's the third string.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know, because the latest reports I hear are Andy Dalton. Somehow he's the savior.
Andy fucking Dalton. Jesus Christ. I got a buddy of mine that's a Bengals fan. He'd be laughing his balls off.
I even suggested they trade for Cam, but Cam doesn't fit the system. Cam will get run out of there the minute he starts whining. And, I mean,
probably true.
That may be true, but, I mean, let's hope he doesn't. I mean, if you take a shot. You're right. What is going through Belichick's mind? Is he going to tank, or is he going to try to continue to win?
Yeah, and that remains to be seen. It'll be curious.
Because I'm looking at, so the Pats pick, correct me if I'm wrong, like 22nd?
I think 23rd. Yeah, but in that range, yeah.
I would imagine Burrow's obviously gone. I would imagine Justin Herbert's gone. I would imagine Tua's gone. So maybe Jacob Eason's gone. Jacob Eason's gone. So we're looking at, with a first-round pick, if you wanted to take a quarterback, you're looking at, Jake Fromm?
Yeah, that's a possibility. And he has the build of the type of quarterback that Belichick seems to like.
Correct, but I also think he may be there in the second round. But do you risk that he's not?
Yeah, exactly. Let me see here. I heard a trade earlier today that was very interesting. And tell me what you think about this.
Okay.
New England takes Julian Edelman and the 23rd overall pick and trades it to the Chargers for the 6th overall pick.
They would have to be in love with Tua or Justin Herbert. And I
don't know anything about Justin Herbert. Obviously, Tua, everybody knows Tua.
Justin Herbert was, not this past season, but the previous season, was projected by McShay to be the number one quarterback. He decided to come back for his senior season and actually hurt his stock. Mostly hurt. Well, I can't say he hurt his stock. He wasn't any better this year than he was last year, and obviously the rise of Joe Burrow made him not the top quarterback.
Sure, yeah.
So he hurt himself by not coming out 2 years ago. I like Justin Herbert. I don't love Justin Herbert, and I don't love trading Julian Edelman for Justin Herbert effectively. So I would say no.
Okay.
If you could get the number one pick and you were in love with Joe Burrow, I'm not in love with any of these quarterbacks that are coming out of the draft, to be honest with you. I actually, if I had to stay at 23, I wouldn't mind taking Jake Fromm. I like Jake Fromm. I think the better play would be to suck it up for a year, try to tank, and go for Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, or do you take... I guess it wouldn't make sense if you're trying to get Trevor Lawrence, presumably next year, or does he have one more year to go?
He has this year, is his last year of eligibility.
Okay.
Like this upcoming football season.
Right. So, yeah. Yeah, so that would be...
Because Trevor Lawrence, if you believe the hype, is Tom Brady with legs.
Yeah. Which would be
can make the throw, is elusive, is a leader, and he can run.
God damn.
Yeah, I mean, I think he checks all the boxes. So the question is what is Bill Belichick thinking? Tank for Trevor, or actually is his ego so big that he's going to try to have a better season than Brady's Bucks?
I don't even know if he's trying to compare himself to Brady's Bucks. I think Belichick just doesn't know how to lose.
It's going to be an interesting storyline for sure.
Yeah, well,
especially since they let Shelton walk, Collins walk. They traded Duron Harmon.
Kyle Van Noy
walked. Yep. So I mean, if they're tanking, they're definitely showing those signs.
Yeah, and you if they start trading some of these guys, like I know they traded Harmon. But if they start...
well, I mean, if they're trading Hightower or Stephon Gilmore, that's a full-scale tank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's maybe what they have to do in order to get Trevor Lawrence, is you stockpile picks either this year or next, and then you package 2 firsts, 3 seconds to move up to the number 1 overall pick and get Trevor Lawrence. If you have to move up that much, maybe you only have to move up 2 spots if you have a shit season.
Well, that depends on how you finish this year. If you're the worst team, you don't have to do any of that.
Well, yeah.
But with guys like Gilmore and Hightower and a halfway decent offense, you might not be the worst team. You might be the 10th worst team.
Right.
And that's where you have to figure out. I would imagine a package moving from 10 to 1 would include that pick, the first round pick the following year, and a couple of seconds. Because I think that was the package to go. That was the package for I believe the Rams to go up and get Goff. I think that was the package they did. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, very much so.
It's not the only thing that happened in free agency, but it's obviously the biggest thing, and it's something that we'll be keeping track of. Like I said, for me, Sadie's gone in New England. Thanks for the memories. In Tampa, I'm hopeful and excited for them to be relevant again. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I know that they've had tough competition in that part of the world with the Tampa Bay Lightning being good each and every year. I think that just further relegates the Buccaneers into...
and the Rays have been pretty quality the last couple of years, too.
Yeah. Not
World Series contenders, but at least playoff contenders.
Yeah, so that's certainly not helping the Buccaneers' stock down there.
That is correct. The only reason the Rays don't cut into their stock is because they're across the bay, and that's it's always been tough for the Rays to be relevant because most of the people in Tampa Bay area live in Tampa, and they don't want to travel 45 minutes to go see them. So that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up here. Thank the sponsors. First and foremost, obviously, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, where we air every weekend. Maybe even more now that our city is shut down.
Yeah.
So just look for us. Just look for us every day. We might have a podcast. And of course, Seat Giant, promo code 12 Ounce Sports, where you can get discounted sporting event tickets, concert, and theater tickets. Obviously, when all of those things open back up. So for Spike, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening, and we will catch you on the next one.